So let's just look at 3 ways that we know can be very helpful for a team working together, trying to understand the work they do and to focus on what they could do in the next few days in order to start that improvement journey. Because talking about it is one thing, but nothing is going to be improved unless we actually try and test things out and start to make changes. So one of the things that we can think about is actually sometimes we spend a lot of time focusing on what went wrong. Why not focus on when it went right? Actually, that's a very positive psychological experience for people. And it can generate often just as much useful information. Yes, it may be that it seemed like everything lined up and it all worked perfectly, but there'll be a reason for that. Somebody, all the team were there. Perhaps it was very clear what the circumstances for this particular child and family were. Perhaps somebody had had recent experience that made them realize that, at the school that this child was particularly at, there's a really useful school nurse who we know we've worked with before, so perhaps we'll contact her and see if she can support this child in a different way so that we don't have these recurrent admissions with ketoacidosis. So how do you deal with that? Well, first of all, let's talk about a really good event. Perhaps you've had a letter from a patient and their family saying what a great job you've done. So what happened, what could have happened, and what did we learn? How do we learn to make it as good as that every time? Rather than sometimes what we focus on is what should have happened, which obviously is a different mindset. The second thing, a really important thing, is to use what we call a human factors grid. You'll have read and heard a lot about human factors. Long history. It's not just to do with aviation. Actually, it's used across the business world where humans are working with complex systems and complex equipment. Because as human beings, we're all hardwired to forget stuff, to be distracted, to make false assumptions, because we've seen it like that before, to overlook key clues about things because we aren't paying the right sort of attention at that moment. And so human factors and human factors analysis can be a really good way to get into a problem and come up with a rationale for what needs to change, rather than just an idea, to have some kind of science and evidence base behind why it might work. So I've showed you here James Reason's original human factors grid. He actually developed this 20 odd years ago. It's only recently featured in education and clinical education, but it really clearly gives you boxes and structures to think about when you're looking at a problem. So are there work factors that make it difficult to do the job well and do it optimally? Well, are there team factors around skills, knowledge, and shared understanding of what needs to happen? Are there individual factors around individual knowledge, individual skill sets, or indeed the way an individual is expected perhaps to do 2 or 3 things at the same time, or not have the right things to hand when they're undertaking a task? Are there task factors? Is it easy to do the right things? Do we have all the kit together in the right place in an easy way to be able to get the bloods done and the weight done and so on and so on? And then, of course, are there patient factors? So when you're looking at a problem and what went wrong, or indeed what went right, think about these 5 components of the bigger system and think about how you might be able to refine and rebuild some of them and test that out next week in the clinic to see if you can get things working more reliably and more consistently. It's a really valuable way of thinking about things. And when you put it together, what you see is that with technologies, patient, the team, the task, the work environment, we can create better professional work, better patient and professional collaboration, a better experience for the family and the patient so that they're co-producing good care with us, and the outcomes for the patient, for ourselves, and the system as a whole are all improved. What more could you ask for?